Have you ever thought about the different types of cellular membranes or plasma membranes there are? Well, I have, so let me tell you about my favorite one. We have the phospholipid bilayer. Now, what is a phospholipid bilayer, you may be asking? Well, a phospholipid bilayer is a type of membrane that forms around the entirety of a cell. Now, let's kind of get into the three main components of a phospholipid. Now, remember, these are not all the components, just the main three. We're going to start with our phosphate heads, our fatty acid tails, and embedded proteins. And we're going to start with embedded proteins. So our embedded proteins, there are so many different types. Embedded proteins tell you the function of the cell. So you can have transport proteins, you can have recognition proteins, all other sorts. And you can have all different variations. And there's going to be different sizes. Now I drew a bigger guy here, but there are some that sit at the top and float and sit at the bottom and float. Now keep in mind that I say float. And let's move on to our phosphate head and our fatty acid tails, which I personally think are the two coolest parts about phospholipid bilayers, because our phosphate heads and our fatty acid tails are polar opposites. And what I mean by that is that they make the entire bilayer have a selective permeability or make it semi-permeable. Now what this means is that large molecules and ions cannot pass through or enter the bilayer. And why, you may be asking? Well, like I said, they're polar opposites. Our phosphate head is going to be our polar molecule, while our fatty acid tails are going to be our non-polar molecule. Now, what this also means is that our phosphate heads love water. They're hydrophilic. Love, love, love water. While our fatty acid tails are hydrophobic. So think of phosphate heads and water like peanut butter and jelly, if that's your jam. And think of fatty acid tails as water and oil. They just don't mix. And I think that's super cool when you think about what a phospholipid bilayer kind of acts like. Now remember, I told you to remember that these float, right? So there's a fluid mosaic inside of the phospholipid bilayer, which kind of lets bilayers act like a crowded concert. You know, if you're at a concert, most people aren't standing in one place. People are dancing, you're moving around, someone's grabbing a drink, going to the bathroom. There's just constant motion and it's extremely fluid. Well, that's exactly what it's like inside of a phospholipid bilayer. These embedded proteins are moving, floating, moving front, back, left, right, diagonal, in all sorts of directions. Thank you so much for watching this video about phospholipid bilayers, and I hope that you learned something new and you enjoyed.